All right, so today I want to talk about the tariffs that has been implemented on February 1st from Trump on Canada. So, the thing is, a lot of people are wondering what's going to happen when they implement it. Well, obviously, clearly, we are retaliating and prices are going to rise. And prices are going to rise everywhere in the United States and in Canada. Of course, they're doing it to Mexico too. And here's the funny thing, they they decided to tariff China 10%. They decided to tariff Mexico 25%, and then they decided to tariff um, Canada 25%. And we're right next to them, right? Mexico and Canada's right next to them. What is wrong with you? And then you tariff China 10%. That's the funny thing, which means that Trump is actually afraid of China because if something happens, if Trump tariffs China too much, what is going to happen is that they're going to send us into a global recession. And he doesn't want that on his watch. So they decide, or I guess Trump decided to tariff Canada and Mexico. And the reason for that is because they want Canada and Mexico to handle China, right? So I think what they want to do is that they want Canada and Mexico to tariff China so that, instead of directly tariffing China. But, anyways, Canada is in a really bad state, right? It has been in a very bad state for over 10 years. It's just that we haven't seen it at the beginning. It's like getting cancer at the beginning. You don't really know. You don't really know until you're in the depths of it, in the middle of it. And we're in the middle of it right now, right? We're not dead yet. We're still alive. And some people think we could still save the country. For me, I don't think we could still save the country. The thing is, you got to remember, too, the population that is uh, replacing the baby boomers, right, is of poor quality, right? The people there are not as productive. That's why we need to import a lot of immigrants from India and other countries that work harder, while the locals, they can't move out of their parents' basement. They're not willing to work. I mean, you have an Indian that's willing to do Uber, right? But you won't have a native born willing to do Uber. And, if they do Uber, they want the big jobs. They want the stuff that is easy. So, you know, people from India don't really care, right? What is happening is they just do whatever that can make them money. All right, so like I was saying, you don't have that many people that is willing to work. So, the life is going to get harder in Canada, and I don't know if it'll get harder in the US, maybe by a little, I don't know, but most likely prices in Canada will rise. And that's like grocery prices, right? I don't even know if housing price is going to rise or not. You see, we might be thrown into a recession, and we're not in the recession yet, right? When we're in the depths of a recession, it's going to be very bad. Things are going to go down a lot, especially asset prices in Canada and stock and stuff like that. And, when we're in the middle of it, it might take 5, 10 years to go back to normal, right? Or even 20 years. It might not even ever go back to normal. Have you watched the stuff from 2008? What happened is that, hey, we're not even back to normal, so-called back to normal. I mean, back then, right, in 2008, the Western society was at the top of everything, and everything was good, and Asia was pretty bad, and now, well, not pretty bad, but it wasn't as good. But now it's totally flipped, right? So, Canada, the United States, most of the Western countries haven't gone back to the state it was in 2008 and prior. And now, right, it looks like we're going to go down even further, right, in the next financial crisis. And it might take another 20 years or 30 years or whatever or more for everything to return to normal or so. I don't know if it will ever return to normal. And we're in a really bad state, and I don't have another 20 to 30 years sitting around, moping around, doing nothing. And for me, I think the best thing to do for people is to sell their asset and leave. That's what I'm planning to do. And my plan, even though it's actually pretty slow, I'm trying to hasten it right now, resolve all issues so I could just get out of here because we're not going back. We can't solve the debt issue. How are we going to solve the debt, right? By having more people come in to pay more taxes and by increasing taxes, right? That's the only way to actually survive, not even pay. It's like paying the interest. So, what this will do is make Canada worse than it already is. And of course, people are talking about buy Canadian. You could do that. That'll probably slow down the process of us degrading and our standard of living degrading. But sooner or later, people are going to have to make the decision: up and leave, or just wait it out, right? I mean, a lot of younger folks can wait out their parents' death or something and take their property. But after they take their property, they're going to need to pay they're going to need to pay for it. And most likely, those inherit people that inherited it will probably sell the house and leave. That is the only choice for local Canadians that want a higher standard of living. If you're slowly wanting to die, then obviously Canada is the place that we're going to die if we don't do anything, because it's just getting way too expensive. And from what I see, it's not just the expense, right? It's not the cost of living, it's the cost of the debt, right? The debt is constantly growing. And when the debt is constantly growing, that means your cost is constantly increasing. And it may not increase at a similar pace as the debt, right? But sooner or later, your cost of living is going to catch up. And by that time, you're older. You might not have that much money because they've been milking you all the way through. And at the end of the day, right? Let's say I retired today and I had nothing. I didn't have a house, right? Like my parents' era. Let's say that. If you retire today, you only get about $1,700, and your rent is like 2,000, right? Minimum 2,500. And let's say you need to go to a nursing home or something. Well, nursing homes like 3,000. So essentially speaking, you you won't be able to survive, and you can expect the worst in 10 years. It's not going to get better. So Canada, these tariffs is going to hasten the destruction of the country, right? It's going to increase the speed in which this country is going to decline, and people need to start planning. That's all I got to say.